My grandfather passed away last year. He was a quiet man, a farmer who lived his whole life on the same plot of land, a property that had been in our family for generations. After the funeral, my father handed me a set of old, rusted keys. "He wanted you to have the farmhouse," he said. "Just be careful out there." I didn't think much of his warning at the time. I was just excited to escape the city, to breathe fresh air and reconnect with my roots. The drive out was long, the paved roads eventually giving way to gravel and then dirt. The farmhouse stood at the end of a long, overgrown lane, silhouetted against the setting sun. It was just as I remembered from childhood visits. A simple, story structure with a wraparound porch, its white paint peeling like sunburnt skin. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and pine. It felt peaceful, like stepping back in time. I spent the first few days just settling in, cleaning out the dust and cobwebs of a decade's disuse. I found old photographs, faded letters, and my grandfather's worn collection of paperback westerns. It was nostalgic, comforting, but as the sun went down each evening, a strange feeling would creep over me. The quiet of the countryside wasn't peaceful anymore. It was heavy, expectant. I'd find myself looking over my shoulder, feeling as though I was being watched from the darkening woods that pressed in on all sides of the property. One night, I was woken by a sound, soft, rhythmic thudding against the side of the house. I lay still, listening. Thud, thud, thud. It sounded like someone was gently knocking, but it was coming from the second-story wall, right outside my bedroom window. My heart hammered against my ribs. I crept out of bed and peered through the dusty glass. There was nothing there, just the gnarled branches of the old oak tree swaying in the moonlight. I told myself it was just the house settling or a branch hitting the siding. I tried to go back to sleep, but the feeling of being watched was stronger than ever. The next morning, I decided to explore the property line, hoping the daylight would chase away the lingering unease. The farm was bigger than I remembered, sprawling across rolling hills and dense patches of forest. As I walked along an old moss-covered stone wall that marked the northern boundary, I found something strange. Tied to the branches of the trees, at regular intervals, were small, weathered objects. Little carved wooden birds, bundles of dried herbs wrapped in twine, strangely dozens of pairs of old cracked sunglasses, their lenses dark and opaque. They were hanging everywhere like strange, forgotten Christmas ornaments. It was bizarre and a little unsettling. What was the purpose of this? That night, the knocking came again. Louder this time. Thud, thud, thud. It was insistent. I grabbed the heavy iron poker from the fireplace and crept to the window. My hand was shaking as I pulled back the curtain. For a split second, I saw it. A shape, tall and impossibly thin, darker than the night sky, standing just at the edge of the woods. It had no discernible features, no face, no clothes. It was just a silhouette, a void in the shape of a man. As soon as my eyes focused on it, it seemed to dissolve, melting back into the shadows between the trees. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next day I drove into the nearest town, a tiny place with a single general store and a post office. I needed supplies, but mostly I needed to see other people. The store owner was an old man named Jeb, with a kind, wrinkled face. He recognized my last name immediately. "You're Old Man Miller's grandson, aren't you?" he asked, ringing up my groceries. I nodded, and on an impulse, I asked him about the strange decorations in the woods. "The sunglasses?" Jeb's friendly demeanor vanished. He leaned over the counter, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Your grandfather put those there. Called them the shades. Said they kept things out." He paused, looking towards the door as if expecting someone to overhear. "Things that don't like to be seen." He wouldn't say more. Just shook his head and told me to be careful, to not go looking for trouble. His words did little to comfort me. Back at the farmhouse, the sun began to set, painting the sky in fiery strokes of orange and purple. The beauty of it was lost on me. All I could feel was a rising tide of dread. I locked the doors, drew all the curtains, and sat in the living room with the lights on, the fireplace poker clutched in my hands. The house was silent. Too silent. Then it started. A faint scratching sound, coming from the front porch. It sounded like fingernails dragging slowly across the old wood. I held my breath, straining to listen. The scratching moved along the side of the house, then stopped directly below my living room window. A floorboard creaked on the porch, Someone, or something, was right outside. My blood ran cold when the doorknob began to jiggle, gently at first, then more violently, rattling in its housing. A low whisper slithered through the crack under the door. It wasn't a language I could understand, but the sound of it felt ancient and wrong, like dry leaves skittering across pavement. I backed away from the door, my eyes wide with terror. The rattling stopped. Silence fell again, thick and suffocating. And then a new sound. Not on the door, but on the window pane just a few feet away. Tap, tap, tap. Slow and deliberate. I knew I shouldn't look. Jeb's words echoed in my head. They don't like to be seen. My grandfather's strange ritual suddenly made a terrifying kind of sense. The sunglasses weren't just decorations. They were wards. They were meant to blind, to block the gaze of whatever lurked in the dark. The tapping grew more insistent, sharper. A crack appeared in the glass, then another. I couldn't help it. My gaze was drawn to the window. In the reflection on the dark, cracked glass, I saw it. The shape from the woods was standing on my porch. But this time, it wasn't just a silhouette. It was a shifting, coalescing mass of shadow, and from the center of its face, a smooth, featureless expanse, 2 points of faint, pale light began to glow, like distant dying stars. They were eyes, and they were looking right at me. As our gazes met, a wave of nauseating cold washed over me. The air grew thin, and the whisper from under the door was now inside my head, a cacophony of sibilant, angry voices. The window shuddered, the cracks spreading like a spiderweb. I screamed, finally breaking the paralysis, and scrambled backwards, stumbling over a rug and crashing to the floor. I didn't wait to see what would happen next. I crab-walked to the back of the house, fumbled a lock on the kitchen door, and burst out into the night. I didn't look back, I just ran. I ran through the overgrown fields, thorns and branches tearing at my clothes and skin. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs gave out. I ran until the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, chasing the deep, oppressive darkness away. Never went back to the farmhouse. My father understood without me having to explain. Sometimes a family inheritance isn't a gift. It's a burden. It's a duty. And my grandfather, in his quiet way, had spent his entire life standing guard, protecting his home from the things that watch from the dark, the things he called the shades. Thank you so much for joining me on this terrifying journey tonight. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. Stay safe out there, and always be mindful of what might be watching from the dark.